Coming up next, a special episode of Professor of Rock. We have two legends on today's show to tell the story of one of the greatest songs of all time. It's one of the most well-known classics of the 80s, but it wasn't actually a hit. It stopped just short of the top 40. It was actually number 41. The song was recorded by the band's longtime lead singer, and then out of nowhere, a legendary artist who the band brought in to produce the record, he felt the song wasn't quite right. So he had the whole thing re-recorded and used a newcomer to the band who was hired to replace their longtime keyboardist. This guy was a keyboardist. He wasn't even the vocalist. He also, did some background vocals from time to time in the band. But the lead singer was pissed. Not only had he co-written the song, but he had a great voice. But this producer, he took a chance on this newcomer in the band, and he nailed it. And one iconic line from the song became so popular, fans actually threw toothbrushes on stage whenever the band would perform it. We have the story from the legendary producer, Icon, who made the controversial decision. We also have the backup singer, who became one of the great singers of all time. They're both on this to tell the story on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you love the rock era, classic rock, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, make sure to click the big red button, click the notification bell so you know when our stuff comes out, our interviews. Man, we got a great one today. Also, t-shirt of the day, Daryl Hall and John Oates. Get yours below at 80stees.com. They have thousands of shirts. You're going to love it. Today, we have two special interviews on a classic 80s song, Elvis Costello and Paul Carrack. They helped bring the classic 80s hit Tempted to life in the band Squeeze. Now, amazingly, lead singer Glen Tilbrook, who co-wrote Tempted with his regular songwriting partner Chris Difford, was going to sing the song. I mean, some even call these guys the Lennon and McCartney of the 80s. They knew they had a great hit with Tempted. They were also pumped to record their studio album, East Side Story, because the record was conceived as an ambitious double four-sided LP that would be produced by some of the biggest names in the business. There was Sir Paul McCartney, Nick Lowe, Dave Edmunds, and Elvis Costello. Well, in the end, only Elvis Costello stayed, and when he made the controversial decision to have the band's keyboardist and sometimes backup singer Paul Carrack re-record Tempted, to the chagrin of lead singer Glen Tilbrook and really the rest of the band, the crap was hitting the fan. Find out what happened next as we have Elvis Costello and Paul Carrack to tell the story. Let's get into it. Produced by Elvis Costello and Roger Bashirian. As with most of Squeeze songs, it was co-written by the boys, Chris and Glenn. I know that Chris wrote the song while riding in a taxi on the way to an airport during an American tour. And it's kind of cool. It's cool how that song came about because it came from a real experience, and you could definitely tell that. What's cool about Tempted is it actually really wasn't a hit. It wasn't a top 40 hit. But it's as big a song as what was number one that week, in hindsight.
It's a great, great song. I'm just pleased I got to have a hand in it and can sort of be a part of it. And I feel that I can, I'm entitled to sing it on my shows and everything. But it's a better song than I could write. It's just fantastic. And not least because of that lyric. As you say, the billboards and the buildings, the laundry on the hill. I couldn't write a lyric like that. The laundry on the hill, billboards and the buildings.
What's cool about the song is it means something different to every person who listens to it. I've got an experience where I'm like, this is what the song's about because that's my interpretation and nobody can take that away from me. And I talked to a friend some years ago who said that was his favorite song and it was because of an experience he was going through.
Yeah, that's right. I was just pleased to sing it, because I didn't relate in that sense, but it's a wonderful chord structure. It's a great melody, and the lyric is just so lyrical and descriptive. And that's what I love about Chris's lyrics. They really do build a picture in your mind.
But forget it all, I know I will.
I know. It's classic. It is a killer. It's a killer song.
Everybody thought that Glenn would sing the lead vocal as always, but then something happened. Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, I had kind of joined the band only a week or two before they went in the studio. I said joined the band. I don't think I realized I was joining the band, to be honest. I'd been drifting around. Ace had fizzled out. I was trying to make my way playing what they call sessions, because a lot of recording things were done much more live in those days, and they would get a bunch of musicians. And my favorite, my peers, the guys I looked up to the most, that's what they did. And I was kind of trying to go that route. And Jules Holland, who was quite a main character in the band, he had left, and they tried a lot of people. And at this point, they were managed by a guy called Jake Riviera. Jake had taken them on under their wing. Now, Jake founded Stiff Records, found Elvis Costello, managed Nick Lowe, and he took on Squeeze.
Squeeze East Side Story, when you produced that.
Wow. Paul was going to, was originally that record, you probably know this story, was going to be our manager of the time. He managed both groups. Jake Riviera had this scheme. I don't know how real it ever was, which was going to be, it would be a four-sided record. One side, we would just do sort of like 6 songs each, and it would be 6 songs produced by Paul, 6 songs by Dave Edmunds, who had begun the record. Me and Nick would do the other 2 sides. And of course, that idea sort of fell apart. And Paul liked Squeeze, but obviously what year was that? That was the year after Wings broke up. And he was just on his own thing. He didn't want to come and produce a record, I guess. He'd said very complimentary things, as well he might, about Squeeze. And I don't know what he was doing in that year in 1980, but there was a whole bunch of reasons why that could have never happened.
And I knew Jake from way back when he was a roadie. I'd been playing with Roxy Music. Jake said, well, why don't you try Paul Carrack? He's back in town, and he's been playing with Roxy, I don't know if they were convinced or what. I still had a beard and long hair, and they were on the new wave, They were running out of people to try, I think. They said, well, come along. So we went in to record East Side Story, the album East Side Story. And I was just there to play keys, and I was loving it. I was a back part of what was going on. Because, let's face it, the identity of Squeeze, especially at that time, were the 2 voices of Glenn and Chris and their songs. And they had a thing. And I wasn't about to try and muscle in on that at all. I was just happy playing keyboards and these interesting songs, these upbeat, great songs. As it turned out, they had already recorded a version of Tempted, which was very different. I don't know if the recording still exists. We just started messing around one day in the studio, kicking it around in that groove, more soul-y groove, and I'm playing the Hammond organ. And Elvis came running in and said, let's put this down, let's put it down like this. That is what we did, and everybody got a bit excited, and I don't know exactly how it happened, but it was Elvis's idea that I should try singing it. And again, I hadn't been singing much for ages, but, I was delighted to get a crack at it.
I bet Glenn's still seething. Glenn is still seething, right? Is he still seething about me taking the song?
Well, I wanted to ask from your perspective, what a decision to come in and say, the guy who is the keyboardist, really.
If I would have been Glenn, I would have said, no, it's okay, I'll sing it. So that was a little bit weird, being the guy who came in to play keyboards, end up singing a lot of the lead on it. And they were very gracious about it, to be honest.
Paul, I mean, the thing I heard in the germ of the song was like, Paul had this huge hit with How Long with Ace. And to me, I went, Paul singing How Long We need that vocal quality that he brings to that song, to this song. It's got a lot more images in it. The thing I'm most proud of about that record is that we held our nerve. There could have been a moment where this got tricky with this decision. I don't remember when in it, but I had already insisted that Chris sing a couple of songs where he sang higher than he normally did. I said, you don't want everything to be like you sing in octaves with Glenn. It's kind of like a signature sound, and we will have that, and we do on a lot of it. But I think it's Woman's World that he sings in a kind of higher voice. And okay, he's not as secure a singer as Glenn is, as melodious, but because it's his words, I wanted to hear those images. In the lyric, because I thought so much, and I still do, of Chris's writing. And I thought in that this was the first record without Julian and the first with Paul had to sing. He couldn't just be the keyboard player. I think in the long run, although that song's leapt out of the frame a little bit, the bigger hit in England was Labeled with Love.
Tempted actually wasn't even really it wasn't a top 40 hit in America.
No. So in some ways, I think, well, it would have been a hit if I'd sung it. You know.
Oh, it's definitely a hit now.
Of cheekiness when I think about it is, I'm also playing guitar on it. That thing that goes that single line thing that goes right through the record. That's me. It's like the Glenn never would have played anything that stupid. I mean, he's much more facility. I said, no, you just got to get on the rhythm of the song and just play one note all the way through everything while that note works. I don't know what you're talking about. Let me show you. I plugged my Jaguar, not even a Jazzmaster, a Jaguar in, I remember, straight into the board and didn't even put it through an amp. DI'd the guitar and just played the whole part. And that's in the mix. I didn't ever really think I was rewriting his song. Yeah. Well, I mean, Glenn, for ages, you know, I won't say he didn't speak to me, but he was really miffed that I said that Paul should sing it. Glenn's like, you know, and I thought that the version that we were cutting originally was pretty. And I said, this song's a lot more, it's got a lot more going on in it. And I said, if you just play this beat. So, you know, kind of like as if it were a High Records thing or something, that as much as we could do in Acton. You know, we didn't know how to go to Memphis and get that sound. So we just did it's the same as everything. You start out to try and copy something and end up. And then I gave it to Paul to sing. And then Paul couldn't sing the lyrics of the second verse for some reason. He just didn't seem to be able to get them to sit. And he sounded so great on the chorus. And I said, well, why don't we have a vocal arrangement like it's the Temptations?
So I'm singing quite most of it, kind of. But the second verse, Glenn takes the lead on the second verse.
I love your vocal.
Tempted?
Oh yeah. And that's a part where every time I listen to that, I always would rewind that part as a kid and listen to the different vocals there.
And I naturally assumed that Chris would sing the bass because he's naturally a bass. Or his bass baritone in register, you know. But then he couldn't get it either. So I ended up having to sing it all. I think really the vocal that's on the record was a sketch.
He does the old people keep on crowding.
The people keep on crowding. And wishing I was well.
And wishing I was well.
Yeah.
So, I think the idea was to go kind of Motowny, that that neck of the woods.
That soulful Motown groove.
We kind of fell in love with. I said, well, it could go like, does Glenn sing the first verse? Yeah, he sings the first, and then I go to people. So I'm doing both that and the Eddie Kendricks part as well. This is close. And in my mind, I'm saying, you just sound just like Eddie now. No, I don't. I just sound like some guy with a squeaky voice, you know. But it kind of works because it's the charmingly English failure to make it perfect. And they let me get away with it.
So it was just kind of spontaneous, or was it planned? Because that's such a cool part.
Yeah, I know. I think that was a lot of Elvis's input on that. I think
Your vocal on that is cool because it's not too much, not too little. It's just right there in the middle. It's right where it should be.
Thanks. I mean, I think I was pretty nervous. Yeah. I sound nervous when I hear it. I sound nervous. I'm tight. But it was quite high for me as well. But no, I mean, the song has a melody. You're not just busking away. And when you got a song like that with a great melody, you don't need to go too far. You know, you can make some little intonation and some little changes to it. But no, it's what it is. It's a great song.
I say that I contend the longevity of that song is largely due to that inspired vocal. I actually think the nervousness that you're talking about actually makes it flow because of what you're singing. Because this is kind of an open your soul kind of song, man. You know, that's why I think it resonate with people. Because of the popularity of Tempted, you were asked to tour with the band, which was not part of your plan.
No, it wasn't, but I was happy to go along with it. I mean, it was exciting times, actually, and suddenly to be part of this London kind of new wave thing.
Well, Roger Bashirian was a well-known engineer. He worked with a lot of new wave acts, not only Elvis and the Attractions, but Nick Lowe, the Undertones, Dave Edmunds. Tempted is one of those songs that has a legacy that's much bigger, like I said, than its peak position. I mean, the song is endured to become an all-time classic. And then it comes back into the, to the zeitgeist, in the 90s with Reality Bites. That was pretty cool.
We re-recorded it for that. So, it's pretty faithful to the original. But, I think there was some reason for doing that, right? Labels and what have you. Yeah, like I say, very happy and very pleased to have been a little part of that thing. For me, it was a real kick up the backside to be involved with those guys. They were lively.
It's cool that it's been used in, so many different things also. Burger King, Heineken, Grand Theft Auto, Vice City, TV Ashes to Ashes. It just shows that it can be taken so many different ways, but there's some really cool covers of Tempted. Have you ever heard Sting's version? That's such a great song. I mean, man, and it's kind of finding new life now. Because I think it's one of the most brilliant songs. Yeah, it just got covered by Sting. He's been doing it in his set. And
I'm going to offer to go and sing a bass voice in the second verse of Sting. Yeah.
The people keep on crowding. I'm wishing I was there.
OK Go did it. Richard Thompson did a cool version of it. Mickey Thomas, Rockapella, Reedy Coolidge, Joe Cocker. You probably heard that one.
Joe Cocker. Did you know I grew up like 2 streets away from Joe Cocker? I mean, he's a little bit older than me, and he was this scary guy who would go past our shop and singing away, or sat near him on the bus and things like that. But he was like a legend in Sheffield, where I came from, playing just in the pubs and the clubs, and I saw him many times.
Well, there had to be something in the water, man.
Yeah. You know, I did see myself as a singer-songwriter, but I didn't want to, try to do that as part of Squeeze because, as I say, they had a very definite identity. They had their songs had an identity, their vocals had an identity.
They're kind of the new wave Beatles in a way, They kind of had that Paul McCartney, Lennon thing, which a lot of people noticed.
They really did. I mean, they're still obviously active and writing and producing new stuff, but that was a particularly great spell they had.
Man, Elvis really pushed these guys outside of their comfort zone. He was adamant about the band making changes in their diet even so that they would have more energy. Really cool. Well, leave us a comment. Man, it was so great to talk to Elvis Costello and Paul Carrack, two heroes of music. Let us know what you think about this song. What are your memories of it? What do you think about the interview? Who would you like to see next? Let us know. Make sure to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.